In this video, which is part of my How to Mix series, I'm going to explain what gain staging is and how to set it up in FL Studio.
This is a FireWalk production.
If this is your first time here, then make sure to hit that subscribe button and the bell notification icon to make sure you don't miss anything. Gain staging is one of the easiest and most crucial tasks when it comes to music production, yet it's often overlooked. If you don't care about gain staging, it may become more difficult to get a good sounding mix. So, take some time to set this up properly. It only takes a few seconds and it will save you plenty of time and effort later on. So, what is gain staging? Simply put, gain staging is the procedure of getting a healthy signal flow within your DAW. The whole point of gain staging is to make sure that you're not clipping anywhere. Now, I could go on talking about analog versus digital headroom, floating point, and so on, but why make it more difficult than it has to be? You don't need to know all of this in order to gain stage properly. To make a long story short, gain staging used to be done very differently back in the analog days, and I think this is part of the reason why there is so much confusion about it today. Back then, you needed to take into account things such as signal-to-noise ratios. Avoiding noise was a crucial part of the gain staging process. In a digital audio workstation, however, this is no longer an issue. So today, we gain stage very differently. There are several ways to set up gain staging. Some people prefer one method over another, and some may say that you need to reach a specific decibel level and so on. Let's just ignore that for now, as it's not really important. What's important is you keep your levels down from the very first source into the next and the next until it ends up in the master bus. The only thing that really matters is that we don't clip the signal anywhere. It doesn't matter if our mix reaches -6 decibels or -3 decibels. As long as it's peaking well below 0 decibels, you should be safe. So let's jump into it. I'm going to try and make this as simple as possible. Let's load a new project. Select Empty Project here. If you open a new project in FL Studio, there will be a limiter on the master, which will push up the levels. And we don't want that. Make sure there's no limiting on your master before you proceed. Let's add a VST. Route it to a mixer channel. I'll quickly add some channels so that we have something to play around with. There are 3 main places to adjust the volume: the mixer, the channel rack, and the synth itself. A lot of people tend to forget about the levels in the synth. As I said, it is important to reduce the volume at the source to avoid clipping, and the synth is what's generating the sound. If you're using a microphone or some other gear to record into FL Studio, then make sure your levels are healthy there as well. Some professionals like to increase the volume in the channel rack all the way up to maximum for all synths, and then just focus on the mixer and the synths themselves. Note that the sample should always be left at their default value. It doesn't matter which way you do it in regard to the channel rack. You can leave it at the default value or set it to max. It's up to you. The most important thing is the source, which in this case is the synth itself, and the signal level when it reaches the master. Let's open Massive. Note that there's a master volume knob here. Every synth should have a master output like this somewhere. Watch what happens when I turn this up too far. That's what clipping sounds like. You can also visually see it here, and here, as well as here. When it turns red, that's a really bad sign. This is what we want to avoid at all costs. It's possible to clip just a little bit without even noticing it. The effect is cumulative, meaning the more elements you have in your mix, the worse it will tend to get. It's very important to make sure that we're not clipping anywhere. The best way to make sure of that is to always turn down those knobs and faders and always mix low. In other words, gain staging. I usually turn down the levels on every single element so that it's hitting around minus 15 decibels on the master. It doesn't have to be exactly 15. Anywhere from minus 10 to minus 18 decibels will usually be fine. By doing this, I know my levels are good, and I can adjust the fader on the mixer to get the mixing right afterwards without having to worry about any potential clipping. It's much better to prevent the clipping at the source right away instead of trying to figure out what's causing the mix to sound bad later on. If you want, you can load up a metering plugin on the master to make it easier to see what's going on. There's a lot of free plugins out there that will do this job nicely. In this case, I'm using Span, which is also a free plugin. I'll add the link to the download page in the description below so that you can head over there and grab it if you want to. Make sure the output volume in the VST doesn't clip by turning it down so that it reaches minus 15 decibels on the master. It's a very dynamic sound, so you won't be able to hit exactly minus 15. This is close enough. Again, it doesn't matter if you aim for minus 15 or minus 12. The whole idea is to give ourselves a safety net to make sure that we're not clipping. Let's add another synth and make some pads. Do the same thing as we did before. Make sure the output volume in the VST doesn't clip by turning it down so that it reaches minus 15 decibels on the master. Keep doing this for all of your elements. Every time you add a new synth, make sure you gain stage it. The exception is, of course, samples and loops. Those should be left at the default level in the channel rack. We can adjust the levels for these in the mixer. If you feel that the volume is way too low, just turn up your monitors. Alternatively, you can put a limiter on the master in order to give yourself some volume. But make sure that you place your metering plugin before the limiter on your master channel if you choose to do this. Remember to turn it off before rendering out the final mix for mastering, unless you intend to do the mastering in the mix. Well, that's it for gain staging. I could talk a lot more about this, but I'm trying to make it as short, straight to the point, and as simple as possible. Make sure to watch the next video in this How to Mix series, where I will be talking about how to do the actual mixing. By that, I mean getting every single element in your mix to sit right in relation to each other. I hope this was helpful. If you're a regular viewer, you probably know that I spend a lot of time and money on these videos. My aim is to make high-quality tutorials that are as easy to understand as possible. If you would like to support my work, you can head over to my Patreon page and donate. Any contribution would be much appreciated. You can find the link in the description below. That's it. I'm uploading new tutorials and templates every week, so make sure to subscribe to this channel so that you won't miss out. Is there any specific tutorial you'd like me to make? Or perhaps you have a question? Just leave me a comment below,